I want you to imagine something right now. Your life, every choice you've made, every action you've taken, every excuse you've whispered to yourself in the dark. Think about the weak version of you. The version that hides when it's hard, that quits when it's uncomfortable, that settles for the easy path because it's afraid to risk, afraid to fail, afraid to push. That version is still alive inside of you, still breathing, still holding you back from everything you were meant to be. And here's the truth that nobody will sugarcoat for you. That weak version is a parasite. It survives by feeding on your hesitation, your fear, your comfort, your excuses. It thrives on the moments when you say, I'll start tomorrow, or I'm too tired, or I can't do it. It has been living rent-free in your mind, in your habits, in your body, in your life. But today, right now, in this very second, that ends. Today is not about motivation, it's about awakening. It's not about feeling ready. It's about forcing yourself to rise even when you're not. You are going to stare down the weak version of yourself, and you are going to make a decision. Either you let it keep running your life, or you crush it completely, strip it of its power, and refuse to ever let it control you again. The weak self wants to keep you small. It wants to keep you invisible. It wants to keep you quiet. It whispers that you are not enough, that the struggle is too much, that failure is permanent, that you're not strong enough. But the strong version of yourself, the version that lives beyond fear, beyond excuses, beyond comfort, is screaming from inside you right now. It's time to rise. The difference between those who dominate their lives and those who stay trapped is action. It's discipline. It's relentless, brutal commitment to becoming stronger than the person you were yesterday. And right now, you are being called to that action. The weak version is going to fight. It will scream. It will remind you of every past failure, every fear, every doubt, every reason why you shouldn't start, why you can't succeed. But that screaming is a signal. It's the proof that you are about to grow. That resistance is the doorway. And through that doorway lies the transformation you've been waiting for, the person you've been avoiding becoming, the strength you've been denying yourself. You are not here to feel comfortable. You are not here to coast. You are here to change, to fight, to push, to break through the limits that have held you hostage for too long. You are here to kill the weak version, and it will not be easy, but nothing worth having ever is. And when it dies, when you strip it of its excuses, its fear, its hesitation, its doubt, you will rise in a way that cannot be ignored, a way that cannot be stopped, a way that will define every choice you make for the rest of your life. So take a deep breath. Because what comes next is not entertainment, not a story, not advice. What comes next is a call to war against your own weakness. And if you listen, if you act, if you commit, nothing, and I mean nothing, will ever be able to stand in your way. The first step in killing the weak version of yourself is to confront it directly, to pull back the curtain and stare unflinchingly at who you have been allowing yourself to be. Most people live their lives running from this reflection, avoiding the truth because it's uncomfortable, because it exposes the excuses, the fears, and the laziness that have been shaping their reality. But growth, real growth, does not come from avoidance. It comes from recognition. You must see the weak version of yourself in the mirror, not the version you wish you were, not the version you pretend to be online or in front of others, but the unfiltered, raw version that shrinks in the face of adversity, that gives in to temptation, that procrastinates when it should be building, that whispers to itself that tomorrow is a better day for action. This version is sneaky. It hides behind routines, hides behind comfort, hides behind the busyness of life to avoid being confronted, but it is there. It is waiting, and it is draining you of your potential. To kill this version, you must first identify it, dissect it, and name it. What are the habits that define weakness in your life? Is it the constant scrolling on your phone while your goals gather dust? Is it the half-hearted commitment to your dreams where you show up sometimes but quit when things get hard? Is it the fear that keeps you silent when you should be speaking up? The doubt that keeps you from taking risks? The indecision that lets opportunity pass you by? These are the fingerprints of your weak self. The evidence of a life being lived beneath the level you were created to reach. Understanding your weak self requires brutal honesty. You cannot sugarcoat it. You cannot justify it, and you cannot blame circumstances or other people. This is about you and the choices you have made, the patterns you have allowed, and the thoughts you have fed. When you recognize these patterns, you take away their power. Ignorance is the ally of weakness. Knowledge is the first strike in killing it. Once you see it, you can no longer hide behind excuses because the truth has been illuminated. Every fear, every hesitation, every moment of procrastination becomes a target. And the moment you name it, the moment you hold it up in front of yourself, it begins to lose its grip. You see, the weak version of yourself is not just about what you do, it's about what you fail to do. It's about the dreams you abandon before they even realize. The promises to yourself you break silently every day. The potential you ignore while chasing short-term comfort. Recognizing your weak self is recognizing all the moments where you compromised, where you settled, where you chose ease over excellence. And in this recognition, there is power. Because once you see it, you can no longer pretend it doesn't exist. You can no longer tell yourself that someday, somehow, you'll reach the level you are capable of without change. You understand that if you want the life you desire, if you want to reach the heights you know are possible, the weak version of yourself must be confronted and destroyed. This is not a gentle process. It is a process that requires courage because facing yourself fully is terrifying. It requires vulnerability because admitting that you've been operating beneath your potential forces you to confront uncomfortable truths about your character, but it is necessary. The weak version of yourself thrives in darkness, in secrecy, and avoidance. It lives in the moment you choose distraction over action, in the moment you choose fear over faith. In the moments, you choose comfort over challenge. By shining the light of awareness on these moments, by dissecting your thoughts, your actions, and your choices, you dismantle the infrastructure of weakness. You create cracks in its foundation. And in those cracks, strength begins to seep in. Identification is also about patterns. Weakness is not always a single act. It is often a repeated behavior, a cycle that has been reinforced over time. It's the repeated self-sabotage, the repeated giving up, the repeated settling for mediocrity. By studying these patterns, by observing how your weak self manifests in your life, you gain insight into how to attack it. You learn when it appears, what triggers it, and how it operates. Knowledge of your weakness is the blueprint for its destruction. And there is another critical component in identifying your weak version, understanding the cost of its existence. Weakness is expensive. It costs you your dreams, your respect, your potential, your peace of mind. Every day that you allow it to dominate, you pay a price. You pay with lost opportunities, with regret, with the slow erosion of self-confidence. Seeing the weak version of yourself means seeing the tab it has been running up against your life. And when you truly comprehend the cost, when you truly understand how much of your future has been compromised by the habits, fears, and excuses of the person you have been, the fire to change will ignite within you. The weak version of yourself can also disguise itself as comfort, as contentment, as rational decision making. It whispers to you that what you have is enough, that effort beyond this is unnecessary, that the struggle is too great. But this is a lie. Comfort is the mask of weakness. It is the shield that protects you from pain, but also protects you from growth. Identifying your weak version requires piercing through this illusion, recognizing that comfort is not safety, it is stagnation. It is the silent thief that robs you of progress while you are lulled into the false sense of satisfaction. To truly identify the weak version of yourself, you must look beyond the surface and see the subtleties of your daily life. It is in the choices you make when no one is watching, in the little compromises, the small acts of avoidance, the procrastination that seems harmless, the self-talk that diminishes your confidence. These are the building blocks of the weak self, and they accumulate quietly, invisibly, until one day you wake up and realize that you are living far below your potential. Facing this is uncomfortable, but it is liberating. Because once you see it clearly, you can no longer be deceived by it. You can no longer be led astray by its whispers. You can no longer give it the power to define your life. Recognition is the first act of war against your weakness. And in this war, awareness is your weapon. The moment you recognize the weak version of yourself is the moment you reclaim authority over your life. You shift from being a passive participant, someone who reacts to life, to an active creator who shapes life on your terms. It is the awakening. Identification brings clarity, and clarity brings action. You cannot kill what you cannot see, and you cannot see what you refuse to face. So look deeply, look hard, look at the habits, the fears, the laziness, the compromises, the avoidance, the self-doubt, the procrastination, and the excuses. Name them, see them, understand them. Feel the discomfort they bring. Let that discomfort fuel the transformation. This is the starting point. This is the ignition. Until you identify the weak version of yourself, until you face it unflinchingly, you will never have the power, the clarity, or the momentum to become the strong, relentless, disciplined, unstoppable version of yourself that you are capable of being. Recognition is the birth of change, and without it, strength remains a concept, not a reality. It is only when you see it that you can destroy it, and only when you destroy it that you can rise. The second keynote in the journey to killing the weak version of yourself is the absolute rejection of excuses. Excuses are the currency of weakness, the rationalizations we tell ourselves to justify why we are not achieving, why we are not growing, why we are not pushing toward the life we are capable of living. Every excuse you make is a chain, a handcuff, a tether that keeps you anchored to the weak version of yourself. Excuses disguise themselves as reasonable explanations, as if the world owes you understanding or leniency for your shortcomings, but in reality, they are nothing more than the soft whispers of surrender. To kill the weak version of yourself, you must stop giving it life with excuses. Stop rationalizing your failures, your procrastination, your avoidance. Every I can't because, or I'm too tired, or I don't have enough time is a dagger to your own potential. Excuses are seductive because they provide comfort, but comfort is the natural ally of weakness. It is easier to blame circumstances, to point at the external world, to convince yourself that life is unfair than it is to look inward and face the raw truth. The weak version of yourself is alive because you are allowing it to exist. Responsibility is the weapon in this battle. Taking full responsibility for your actions, your inactions, and the consequences of both is the first strike against the weak self. Responsibility demands awareness. It demands courage. It demands ownership of the fact that your life, your future, and your growth are in your hands and no one else's. It is not a matter of circumstance. It is a matter of choice. Each excuse is an abdication of choice, a surrender of control. The weak version thrives in excuses because excuses absolve it of accountability. They allow it to continue living without pressure, without urgency, without the fire that is required to build strength, resilience, and excellence. You must understand that excuses are lies you tell yourself to protect the weak self from exposure. Every time you say, I can't because I don't have this or I don't have that, you are feeding the weak version of yourself. You are giving it nourishment, sustaining it, keeping it alive. To reject excuses is to starve the weak version, to remove its sustenance, to make it uncomfortable until it has no choice but to die. This rejection requires brutal honesty. You must examine every area of your life and ask yourself, without bias or justification, why you are not performing at the level you know you are capable of. Is it because of the environment, the people around you, the timing? Or is it because you have allowed fear, laziness, and indecision to control your actions? The answer is always the latter. Life will never be perfect. Conditions will never be ideal. The weak version of yourself hides behind this illusion, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect circumstances, the perfect combination of external factors to begin. But the truth is, the strong version acts regardless. It moves, it creates, it builds, it grows despite imperfection because it understands that waiting is weakness. Waiting is an excuse disguised as prudence, and it is killing you softly every day. To stop making excuses, you must train your mind to see beyond the temporary discomfort, the inconvenient circumstances, the lack of resources, and the fear of failure. Excuses are mental constructs, and they can be dismantled with focus, clarity, and determination. They do not exist in reality. They exist in the mind of the person unwilling to face the challenge, unwilling to rise, unwilling to push beyond their comfort zone. Confronting excuses also means confronting your own tendencies toward procrastination and self-deception. It means admitting that much of what you have blamed on external factors was actually under your control all along. Excuses are a form of self-deception, a lie you tell to yourself to avoid the pain of growth. And pain is necessary. Weakness runs from pain. Excuses provide a shield from pain, a false armor that makes life feel safe. But safety is stagnation. The strong version understands that discomfort is temporary, but regret lasts forever. Each time you choose an excuse over action, why? Oh, you are signing a contract with regret, binding yourself to a life of mediocrity and unfulfilled potential. Rejecting excuses requires discipline because the weak version will fight for its survival. It will whisper, it will nag, it will make you rationalize, it will make you feel justified. But discipline is the muscle that must overpower it. Discipline means doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. Discipline means putting in the work when it's hard, inconvenient, or uncomfortable. Discipline means facing the truth of your life without flinching, without blame, without justification. Each time you reject an excuse, you weaken the weak version. Each time you take responsibility, you strengthen the warrior inside. And this process is cumulative. The more you refuse to make excuses, the more natural accountability becomes, the more natural action becomes, the more natural strength becomes. Life is not waiting for you to be ready. Life does not pause for your convenience, and it certainly does not reward excuses. The world responds to action, to commitment, to courage, to resilience, to results. The weak version survives on waiting, hiding, rationalizing, and excusing. The strong version survives on relentless action, on relentless pursuit, on relentless commitment. To truly kill the weak version of yourself, you must embrace the discomfort of accountability, the discomfort of action, the discomfort of facing life on life's terms rather than your own. You must stop blaming, stop rationalizing, stop finding reasons why something cannot be done. Every excuse you remove is a victory. Every moment you choose action over justification is a strike against what? Finesse. Eventually, the weak version cannot sustain itself in a life dominated by accountability and action. It dies because it has no foundation, no power, no sustenance. Only action, only discipline, only responsibility can bring it down. Remember, excuses are seductive, but they are deadly. They are the glue keeping weakness alive. When you stop giving excuses, when you stop justifying, when you stop blaming, you take away the weak version's lifeline. You starve it, you confront it, you destroy it. And in its place rises the stronger, more relentless, more capable version of yourself. This is the moment when excuses are no longer allowed to dictate your life. This is the moment when you stop being a passenger and become the driver, steering your destiny with focus, clarity, and unshakable determination. Weakness cannot survive where responsibility reigns. Excuses cannot thrive where action dominates. The death of excuses is the death of the weak version. The life of accountability is the birth of the strong version. And that strong version will never look back because it knows the price it paid to emerge, and it knows that excuses are the enemies of progress and enemies of victory and enemies of destiny. The third keynote in the journey to killing the weak version of yourself is the relentless embrace of discomfort. Discomfort is the battleground on which transformation is won, the crucible that forges strength, the fire that melts the illusions of ease and mediocrity. The weak version of yourself lives to avoid discomfort. It seeks comfort at every turn. It hides from pain. It refuses to step into situations that challenge its limits. And it constantly searches for the path of least resistance. But strength, greatness, and unstoppable success are never born in comfort zones. They are birthed in the moments when you push past what is easy, when you confront what scares you, when you endure what others refuse to face. To embrace discomfort relentlessly means to welcome struggle as an ally rather than an enemy. To see pain as a signal that you are on the right path. To understand that every challenge, every hardship, every inconvenient situation is not a punishment, but an opportunity. Discomfort is a teacher, and the weak version runs from the classroom. It whispers that life should feel easy, that success should be effortless, that the rewards of ambition should come without sweat, without sacrifice, without struggle. But this is a lie. The truth is that discomfort is the doorway to power. Every time you resist it, every time you avoid it, every time you choose comfort over challenge, you reinforce weakness. You allow the weak version of yourself to survive and even thrive, feeding on your fear and your hesitation. To embrace discomfort relentlessly requires a mental shift. You must reprogram your mind to associate pain with progress, struggle with growth, difficulty with opportunity. You must start seeing every uncomfortable situation as a test of your strength, a chance to outgrow the version of yourself that has been small, timid, and complacent. The weak version will try to convince you otherwise. It will scream that this is too hard, that this is unfair, that this is too much. It will remind you of past failures, of fears, of insecurities. It will attempt to paralyze you with doubt. But the strong version steps forward regardless. It does not negotiate with fear. It does not argue with struggle. It does not bargain with difficulty. It understands that discomfort is not optional. It is required. Life will always challenge you. And the sooner you learn to welcome the discomfort, the faster you evolve into someone capable of dominating any circumstance. Embracing discomfort also means rejecting instant gratification. The weak version is addicted to pleasure, to ease, to the fleeting comforts that mask the pain of growth. It chooses temporary satisfaction over long-term victory. But the strong version understands that greatness is a long game, that every moment of discomfort endured today compounds into strength, resilience, and power tomorrow. The gym, the early mornings, the hard conversations, the rejection, the criticism, the failures, these are not punishments. They are the very tools that sculpt the strong version of yourself. Each act of persistence in the face of discomfort is a strike against weakness, a declaration that you will not be ruled by fear, laziness, or avoidance. To embrace discomfort relentlessly also means to challenge yourself continuously. It is not enough to face difficulty once and then return to comfort. True transformation requires repetition, consistency, and escalation. You must seek out situations that push your limits, that stretch your mind, body, and spirit beyond the familiar, beyond what is easy. This is the difference between the weak version that survives and the strong version that dominates. The weak version is passive. The strong version is aggressive in pursuit of challenge. The weak version fears failure. The strong version uses failure as feedback. Discomfort, T, is the language of growth. And to ignore it is to remain stagnant. You must also understand that discomfort is not just physical. It is mental, emotional, and spiritual. It is the tension of making difficult decisions, of speaking truths that are unpopular, of holding yourself accountable when no one else is watching, of persevering when hope seems distant. The weak version avoids these moments. It hides, it rationalizes, it gives up. But the strong version leans into them, knowing that each act of courage and discomfort reinforces character, fortifies resilience, and strengthens resolve. There is also a crucial element of discomfort that most people overlook. It is temporary. The weak version fears it as if it is eternal, as if the pain, struggle, and difficulty will last forever. But every moment of discomfort is fleeting. It passes, and when it passes, it leaves behind growth, knowledge, and power. The more you endure, the more you learn, and the stronger you become. This understanding transforms discomfort from something to be feared into something to be sought. It becomes a ladder, each rung representing a trial, a challenge, an act of persistence, a conquest over the weak version of yourself. Relentless embrace of discomfort also requires sacrifice. You will need to give up habits, routines, and pleasures that have been shielding the weak version. You will need to leave behind people, environments, and mindsets that encourage complacency. You will need to choose the hard path over the easy one every single day. Weakness is comfortable, strength is uncomfortable. You cannot have both. Every choice you make in favor of discomfort is a choice against weakness. You are essentially training yourself to thrive under conditions that would destroy those who refuse to face the fire. And this is the secret. The world does not reward comfort, it rewards results. And results are always birthed in the arena of discomfort. To embrace discomfort relentlessly is also to develop patience and persistence. You will not become strong overnight. You will not kill the weak version in a single moment. It is the accumulation of acts of bravery in the face of difficulty, the daily decisions to push, to endure, to persist, that slowly dismantle weakness. Each morning you wake before the world, each time you push through fatigue, each time you speak your truth, each time you act in spite of fear, you are striking another blow against the weak version. And eventually there comes a tipping point. The weak self, starved of comfort, exposed to relentless challenge, crushed under the weight of consistent effort, cannot survive. It dies, and in its place rises a stronger, sharper, more resilient version of you. Finally, embracing discomfort relentlessly changes your perception of life. You no longer see challenges as obstacles, but as invitations. You no longer see failure as defeat, but as feedback. You no longer see pain as punishment, but as fuel. And in that mindset, the weak version has no foothold because it has no language, no framework, no justification to survive. The warrior version thrives, grows, and dominates because it understands that life's most valuable rewards are earned only through struggle, only through sacrifice, only through discomfort. Relentless discomfort is not punishment. It is empowerment. It is not suffering. It is liberation. The battlefield on which you kill weakness, forge strength, and carve a life that the weak version could never imagine. The moment you commit to living in this tension, to welcoming the fire, to embracing the struggle as essential rather than optional, you begin to transcend the weak version of yourself. Every uncomfortable moment becomes a stepping stone. Every challenge becomes a teacher. Every act of endurance becomes evidence that you are no longer a prisoner of weakness. You are now the master of your own destiny, the warrior who seeks the battle, who thrives in difficulty, who emerges from the crucible, transformed, powerful, unstoppable, unbreakable. Discomfort is no longer the enemy. It is the weapon. And in wielding it daily, you kill the weak version of yourself completely. The fourth keynote in the journey to killing the weak version of yourself is the complete rewiring of your mindset. Your mind is the battlefield on which every victory or defeat begins. The weak version of yourself exists because your thoughts, beliefs, and mental patterns have allowed it to thrive. It is fed by doubt, fear, indecision, and the narratives you tell yourself about who you are and what you are capable of achieving. Every limitation, every hesitation, every failure to act is rooted in the way you think. And to destroy weakness, you must start at the source. Rewiring your mindset means dismantling the old patterns that have been holding you captive, the default thought processes that tell you to settle, to quit, to be small. It is about breaking the chains of negativity, self-pity, and insecurity that have allowed the weak version of yourself to dominate your life. This process, saint, starts with awareness. You must observe your thoughts, catch them in action, and analyze them without judgment. When you notice a thought like, I can't do this, or I'm not ready, or I'll fail, you must recognize it as the weak self speaking, as the version of you that has been hiding behind fear and comfort. Recognition alone is not enough. Awareness must lead to action. Every negative or limiting thought must be challenged, questioned, and replaced with a thought that serves your strength, your growth, and your vision. Rewiring your mindset is not a one-time effort. It is a continuous, relentless practice. It requires vigilance because the weak version of yourself will resist change. It will try to sneak back into your mental patterns. It will try to convince you that old beliefs are still valid, that you cannot succeed, that you are not worthy, that circumstances control your destiny. You must become a master of your own thoughts, an observer who refuses to be enslaved by automatic mental reactions. This requires deliberate conditioning, repeated mental exercises, and the conscious feeding of empowering beliefs. Start by identifying the lies you have been telling yourself, the stories you have accepted as truth that have kept you small. Maybe you believe that success is reserved for others, that discipline is too hard, that you are not talented enough, that failure defines you. These are not truths. They are myths crafted by fear and repetition. To rewire your mindset, you must replace these myths with unshakable truths that serve your evolution. Tell yourself that your potential is limitless, that discipline is the bridge between desire and achievement, that failure as feedback and a step toward mastery, that the only limits are the ones you accept. Repetition is key. The mind learns through practice and reinforcement. The weak self has been built over years, often decades, of mental patterns that reinforce doubt, avoidance, and mediocrity. It will not be dismantled overnight. Daily, you must speak to yourself with clarity, authority, and conviction. Affirmations, visualization, deliberate reflection. These are not fluffy exercises. They are the training ground for a mind that refuses weakness. You must saturate your mind with evidence of your strength, with examples of triumph, with reminders that you are capable, relentless, and unstoppable. Negative thoughts will arise, doubts will surface, fear will appear in countless disguises. But each time you confront them and replace them with empowering, truth-driven thought, you chip away at the foundation of the weak self. This is mental warfare. Your thoughts are not passive. They are active participants in shaping your life. A weak mindset produces a weak version of yourself. A strong, disciplined, growth-oriented mindset produces the unstoppable version of yourself that rises above adversity, that refuses to quit, that dominates challenges rather than being dominated by them. Rewiring your mindset also requires the deliberate shaping of your internal dialogue. Pay attention to the language you use with yourself. Replace phrases like, I can't with I will find a way. I'm not ready with I am learning every day. It's too hard with I thrive under pressure. The weak version thrives on self-deprecation, on doubt, on hesitation. The strong version thrives on conviction, on clarity, on unshakable belief in capability and action. Surrounding yourself with mental fuel is another essential part of rewiring. Consume information, stories, and ideas that expand your perception of what is possible. Avoid the noise that reinforces fear, limitation, and mediocrity. Your environment shapes your mind as much as your thoughts do. And the weak self will use the wrong influences to survive. Feed your mind relentlessly with knowledge, wisdom, and examples of those who have conquered their own weakness. This is not about comparison. It is about proof that transformation is possible, about demonstrating to yourself that the limits you once believed are self-imposed. Rewiring the mind also demands the integration of accountability and reflection. Monitor your decisions, your habits, and your responses to life's challenges. Observe where the weak self reemerges and respond with conscious, empowered choices that reinforce your strength. Each victory over an old thought pattern is a step toward permanent change. Each conscious act of discipline strengthens the neural pathways of resilience and determination, gradually overriding the old circuits of weakness and doubt. You must also understand that mindset rewiring is holistic. It encompasses emotional resilience, mental toughness, and a willingness to confront fear without flinching. It is not just about positive thinking. It is about creating a mental infrastructure that supports unwavering action, relentless effort, and unbreakable focus. Your mind becomes the fortress from which the warrior self operates. Within this fortress, weakness has no shelter, no refuge, no power. It cannot survive because every thought, rye belief, every pattern is deliberately aligned with strength, growth, and action. The process is challenging. The weak self will resist every step, every change, every new belief. It will make you doubt, question, and falter. But you must persist because mental mastery is not optional. It is essential. The more consistently you practice, the more automatic strength becomes. Over time, the rewired mind no longer negotiates with weakness. It no longer tolerates excuses, procrastination, or fear. The weak version is starved of mental support, and its influence fades. Ultimately, rewiring your mindset is not a temporary fix. It is the permanent redesign of your inner world to match the level of the person you are determined to become. It is the key that unlocks potential, the engine that drives discipline, the lens through which all challenges are met and conquered. A mind that is rewired to strength produces a body, habits, and life that reflect that inner power. Weakness cannot exist where thought is decisive, confident, and relentless. The moment your mind is rewired, the weak version of yourself has no foothold. It is exposed, powerless, and ready to be destroyed. The strong version rises because the mind commands it, believes in it, and refuses to let weakness return. This is the essence of transformation. The mind shapes reality, and when it is rewired to power, the weak version dies and the unstoppable version of yourself is born. The fifth keynote in the journey to killing the weak version of yourself is the relentless commitment to outwork your past self. Too many people live in the shadow of who they were yesterday, content to repeat the same mistakes, the same habits, the same mediocre effort that has kept them small. The weak version of yourself thrives in repetition, in comfort, in stagnation, and it uses your own history as a shield, convincing you that because you once failed, because you once gave up, because you once lacked discipline, that pattern defines you. But it does not. Your past self is not your enemy. It is your benchmark. It is the measurement against which you prove your evolution. To outwork your past self means to recognize that every day is an opportunity to be better, stronger, faster, and more disciplined than you were yesterday. Every choice, every action, every moment of effort is a strike against weakness and a step toward dominance. This is not about comparison to others. It is about personal accountability, about refusing to allow your own history to dictate your limits. Weakness is reinforced when you settle, when you look backward and allow your old habits to dictate your present actions. To kill that weak version, you must set the bar higher than it ever has been and then exceed it relentlessly. Outworking your past self begins with honesty. You must look at your life, your achievements, your failures, your consistency, and measure it against your potential. What did you do yesterday that was worthy of the life you desire? What did you fail to do that would have moved you closer to your goals? Where did you coast? Where did you quit? Where did you hide behind excuses? This reflection is not for shame. It is for calibration. It is the acknowledgement that yesterday's effort is insufficient for tomorrow's vision. The weak version of yourself will resist this scrutiny. It will rationalize. It will deflect. ECT. It will make excuses for why yesterday was acceptable, why it is acceptable to give less than your best today. But the strong version confronts this resistance with unwavering discipline. It refuses to tolerate mediocrity. It refuses to let complacency dictate results, and it refuses to settle for anything less than relentless progression. Outworking your past self requires action that exceeds what you have previously done. If you once worked out for 30 minutes, push for 45. If you once studied or practiced for an hour, push for 2. If you once tolerated distractions or procrastination, eliminate them completely. The weak self is satisfied with minimal effort, but the strong self is relentless. Growth occurs in these increments, in the daily choices to challenge yourself, to refuse stagnation, to create discomfort, and to pursue mastery. Discipline is the bridge between your past self and your future self. The weak version relies on motivation, on fleeting feelings of energy, on luck, and on external circumstances to dictate action. The strong version relies on discipline, on structured effort, on daily repetition of excellence, and on an unshakable commitment to improvement. Outworking your past self means showing up when you don't feel like it, when your body is tired, when your mind is exhausted, and performing anyway. It is in these moments that the weak self dies. The weak self loves convenience. The strong self thrives in challenge. Every additional rep, every extra hour of focus, every moment of persistence in the face of fatigue, fear, or doubt is an act of defiance against the person you were yesterday. It is a refusal to allow the past to defend the present. Outworking your past self also requires resilience. Not every effort will yield immediate results. Not every action will produce visible rewards. Weakness thrives on disappointment, on frustration, on temporary failure. But the strong version understands that persistence is not measured by immediate results. It is measured by consistency, by refusal to quit, by willingness to continue even when success is not yet visible. Each day of outworking yesterday compounds into a momentum that the weak self cannot survive. Incremental improvements, sustained effort, and unwavering commitment create an unstoppable force that leaves weakness in the dust. Furthermore, outworking your past self is a mental battle as much as it is a physical or practical one. The weak version will attempt to convince you that today is different, that you are too tired, that the timing is wrong, that circumstances are against you. But each time you override that narrative, each time you push through mental barriers and act with intensity, you strengthen your identity as someone who refuses to be controlled by weakness. The accumulation of these victories over self-doubt, fatigue, and fear is what creates a new version of yourself that cannot be shaken, that cannot be satisfied with less, that cannot be controlled by old limitations. Outworking your past self is also about accountability to yourself. It is about measuring performance against your own standards, not those of others. The weak self seeks validation, seeks shortcuts, seeks permission to rest. The strong self sets its own standards and refuses to compromise, refusing to negotiate with laziness, mediocrity, or complacency. Every day is a challenge to do more than you did yesterday, to raise the bar higher, and to refuse stagnation. This is where transformation occurs. This is where weakness is systematically dismantled, where your character is forged, and where your potential is realized. To outwork your past self is to embrace relentless progression. It is a lifestyle, not an event. It is the commitment to daily action, daily improvement, and daily defiance against the version of you that tolerated less than you are capable of achieving. Weakness is patient. It waits for complacency. It thrives in the gap between effort and potential. Outworking your past self eliminates that gap, leaving no room for excuses, no room for rationalization, no room for stagnation. Each day, you are setting the stage for who you will become. Yesterday's effort is irrelevant. Today's action determines your trajectory. Each day that you surpass your past self is a victory. Each day that you refuse to quit is a blow to the weak self. Each day that you act with relentless intensity is a reinforcement of the new version of you. Outworking your past self is not easy. It demands courage, discipline, focus, and sacrifice. It demands consistency when motivation is absent. It demands refusal to yield to comfort, distraction, or fear. But it is the key to killing weakness, because the weak self cannot compete with relentless action. It cannot survive in an environment of discipline, persistence, and continuous self-improvement. The strong version thrives where the weak version falters. Ultimately, outworking your past self is about creating momentum that the weak self cannot survive. It is about leaving nothing on the table, giving everything you have, pushing past fear and doubt, and refusing to be limited by history. Every choice you make to do more, to push harder, to go further than yesterday is a strike against weakness. The accumulation of these choices, these efforts, these acts of defiance is what destroys the weak version of yourself completely and allows the unstoppable, disciplined, and powerful version of you to rise. This is the essence of transformation: relentless action, daily improvement, and the unwavering commitment to outwork the person you were yesterday. The sixth keynote in the battle to kill the weak version of yourself is the ruthless elimination of toxic influences from your life. The weak version thrives not only on your own habits, thoughts, and fears, but also on the people, environments, and inputs that reinforce its existence. Toxic influences are like anchors, invisible chains that keep you tethered to mediocrity, distraction, and failure. They are the friends who drain your energy, the relationships that demand more than they give, the negative environments that stifle growth, the media, content, and conversations that fuel doubt, fear, and complacency. To kill the weak version of yourself, you must be willing to cut these influences out completely, to create a space where strength, discipline, and focus can grow unimpeded. This process begins with awareness. You must examine every relationship, every habit, every source of input in your life, and ask yourself a brutally honest question. Does this help me grow, or does it hold me back? Many people fail at this step because they are emotionally attached, because they fear confrontation, because they confuse familiarity with loyalty, or comfort with necessity. The weak version of yourself relies on this hesitation. It uses attachment, fear, guilt, and obligation to keep you tethered to what is holding you back. You must see it for what it is. Friends who are perpetually negative, who criticize, who gossip, who lack ambition, and who discourage your growth are toxic. They are invisible predators feeding on your potential, and the weak version of yourself is their ally. Environments that breed distraction, complacency, or low standards are equally dangerous. Whether it's the physical space you occupy, the culture you surround yourself with, or the habitual routines that numb your ambition, these forces reinforce weakness by making it feel acceptable, normal, or inevitable. Media, entertainment, and social feeds that encourage comparison, envy, procrastination, or fear are also tools that keep weakness alive. They occupy your mind, drain your focus, and reinforce a narrative that you are not capable, that life is too hard, that comfort is safer than risk. Recognizing these toxic influences is only the beginning. Awareness without action is still complicity. You must be willing to take decisive steps to remove them from your life. This is rarely easy because it requires courage, clarity, and the willingness to prioritize your growth over comfort, familiarity, or social expectation. Cutting toxic influences does not mean destroying every relationship, but it does mean setting boundaries, or in some cases, eliminating people or situations that consistently drain, distract, or diminish you. You must protect your energy, your focus, and your mind as fiercely as a warrior protects a fort rests. The weak version will fight against this. It will whisper that you are being harsh, selfish, or unfair. It will appeal to guilt, obligation, and sentimentality. But the truth is that growth requires clarity and strength. Weakness survives in compromise and indecision. Strength thrives in deliberate, sometimes uncomfortable action. To eliminate toxic influences, you must understand the cost of allowing them to remain. Every negative conversation, every wasted hour, every environment that lowers your standards, every habit that distracts you from your mission is a brick in the foundation of the weak self. The longer you tolerate it, the stronger the weak version becomes. Every day you choose distraction over focus, criticism over encouragement, comfort over challenge. The weak version grows bolder, more entrenched, more difficult to kill. This is why the elimination of toxic influences is non-negotiable. It is not optional. It is not a luxury. It is a requirement for transformation. You must ruthlessly evaluate your inputs, the people you associate with, and the conditions you allow to shape your mind and habits. Once you have identified the toxic influences, you must replace them with sources of growth, inspiration, and accountability. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, who push you, who demand excellence, who inspire action. Immerse yourself in environments that elevate your standards, fuel your ambition, and reinforce discipline. Consume media and content that teach, motivate, and expand your perception of what is possible. The weak version cannot survive in this atmosphere because it relies on compromise, distraction, and diminished standards. Removing NG toxicity is not just about what you eliminate. It is also about what you replace it with. If you cut out negative influences without building a stronger framework around yourself, the weak version can reemerge in new forms. You must fill your life with discipline, focus, positive reinforcement, and consistent exposure to excellence. This creates a protective ecosystem where weakness struggles to survive. Additionally, cutting toxic influences requires a mindset shift. You must understand that prioritizing your growth is not selfish. It is necessary. People who do not understand your vision, who do not support your discipline, or who do not add value to your journey are liabilities to the warrior version of yourself. The weak self thrives on loyalty to mediocrity, on attachment to comfort, and on avoidance of challenge. You must consciously reject that. And in doing so, you starve weakness while empowering strength. Discipline and consistency are reinforced when your inputs are aligned with your goals. When you are surrounded by energy, focus, and positivity, your weak version has no foothold. It cannot compete with the momentum you create in an environment designed for growth. Your mind becomes sharper, your will stronger, your persistence unshakable, and your confidence unbreakable. This is not an instant process. It is a daily practice. The weak version will attempt to reintroduce toxic influences through old habits, old associations, and old thought patterns. You must remain vigilant. You must protect your mental and emotional space. You must be relentless in maintaining boundaries, refusing to let compromise creep back in. Every time you choose clarity over distraction, strength over weakness, discipline over comfort, you reinforce the environment in which your strongest self thrives. This is how transformation becomes sustainable. Ultimately, cutting toxic influence is about ownership of your life. The weak version survives in chaos, distraction, and compromise. The strong version thrives in clarity, alignment, and deliberate action. By ruthlessly eliminating toxicity, you create a foundation that allows your disciplined, focused, relentless self to emerge and dominate. Weakness cannot survive where intentionality rules. It dies in the presence of accountability, consistency, and deliberate action. The moment you prioritize your mental, emotional, and physical environment, you are signaling to yourself and to the world that the weak version is no longer welcome, that it has no power, and that your new life is being built on a foundation of clarity, strength, and unstoppable momentum. Every toxic influence removed is a brick in the fortress of your new self. Every boundary set is a blade against weakness. Every act of courage in protecting your energy and focus is a step toward complete transformation. This is how the weak version is not just challenged, but eliminated entirely, leaving only the warrior, the achiever, the unstoppable version of yourself. The seventh keynote in the journey to kill the weak version of yourself is the unwavering commitment to transformation over comfort. This is the final decisive step, the crown jewel in the process of leaving the weak self behind, because all the awareness, all the rejection of excuses, all the embracing of discomfort, all the rewiring of your mindset, all the outworking of your self And all the cutting of toxic influences culminate here. The absolute refusal to allow comfort to dictate your life. Comfort is seductive. It whispers to you that it is enough to rest, to coast, to settle, to maintain the status quo. It disguises itself as security, as safety, as stability, and it hides the truth that every second spent clinging to comfort is a second wasted, a second reinforcing weakness, a second stolen from the life you are capable of creating. The weak version of yourself thrives on comfort. It craves it, depends on it, and defends it like a shield. It wants the easy path, the familiar route, the predictable outcome, the life where struggle is minimal, risk is avoided, and growth is optional. But the strong version, the version capable of transcending mediocrity, knows that transformation is born in tension, in discomfort, in challenge, and in relentless effort. To commit to transformation over comfort is to consciously choose growth even when it hurts, to choose effort even when it is inconvenient, to choose the unknown over the familiar, and to embrace sacrifice as a tool for building strength. This commitment is not occasional. It is constant. It is not conditional on motivation, circumstances, or external validation. It is a daily, moment-by-moment decision to prioritize the long-term evolution of your character, your skills, your discipline, and your life over the fleeting, temporary ease that comfort offers. Comfort will always tempt you with excuses, with distractions, with rationalizations. It will tell you that the moment is too hard, that the effort is too great, that the risk is too high, that the world's unfair, that tomorrow is a better day to act. These are lies crafted by the weak version to protect itself, to ensure its survival, to keep you tethered to mediocrity. Transformation, by contrast, demands courage, persistence, and an intolerance for delay. It demands that you reject the soothing voice of comfort every single time it arises and replace it with the call of growth, of challenge, of progress. Committing to transformation over comfort also means embracing sacrifice. Every victory, every milestone, every measure of progress comes at a cost. The weak self calculates, complains, hesitates, and avoids paying that cost. The strong self understands that sacrifice is the currency of evolution. Comfort may demand no effort, but transformation demands everything. It demands hours of practice when the body is tired, relentless focus when the mind wants distraction, difficult conversations when silence would be easier, and bold action when hesitation would feel safer. To commit to transformation is to redefine your relationship with discomfort. Where others recoil, you lean in. Where others quit, you persist. Where others rationalize, you execute. Transformation requires a mindset that views struggle not as punishment, but as proof, not as resistance, but as growth, not as suffering, but as opportunity. Comfort is the false enemy that pretends to protect you from pain, but actually protects the weak self from dying. Every moment you choose discomfort for the sake of progress, you kill another fragment of weakness within yourself. This keynote also requires consistency. You cannot commit to transformation intermittently or selectively. It is not enough to reject comfort when the stakes are high or when motivation is strong. True transformation occurs in the repetition, in the small daily choices, in the cumulative acts of defiance against the weak self. You must consistently push beyond what is easy, refuse to settle, and hold yourself accountable to a higher standard in every domain of your life. Transformation over comfort demands vision. You must have a clear, compelling picture of the person you are becoming and the life you are building. Without vision, the sacrifice and effort required become meaningless. The weak self thrives in aimlessness, in the absence of direction, because direction exposes its insufficiency. A strong commitment to transformation aligns every choice, every action, every thought with a vision of excellence, mastery, and unstoppable progression. The weak version will resist this clarity. It will whisper that your goals are too big, that you are not ready, that it is impossible, that it is too late. Transformation demands that you rise above these whispers, that you trust the process, and that you act with relentless purpose despite fear, doubt, or uncertainty. Another aspect of this keynote is the acceptance of temporary discomfort as permanent fuel. Comfort is immediate gratification. Transformation is long-term investment. The weak self prioritizes the present moment, ease over effort, feelings over results. The strong self prioritizes the future, understanding that the temporary pain, fatigue, and struggle are the necessary conditions for creating a life of strength, achievement, and fulfillment. Every decision to do what is difficult today compounds into a stronger, more resilient, and more capable version of yourself tomorrow. Commitment to transformation over comfort also intersects with identity. The weak version survives by allowing identity to be defined by past failures, external opinions, and circumstances. The strong version defines itself by the choices it makes, the standards it sets, and the relentless pursuit of betterment. You become the person who can endure, who can act decisively, who can thrive under pressure, who refuses mediocrity because you have repeatedly chosen growth over ease. This is a daily battle. Comfort will never stop calling, and the weak self will never stop resisting. But the stronger you become, the easier it is to ignore the whispers of ease and to respond to the call of transformation. Over time, the practice of rejecting comfort becomes automatic, and the weak self, deprived of support, begins to wither. Committing to transformation over comfort is ultimately about self-respect and accountability. It is a declaration that your potential, your life, and your destiny are worth more than temporary ease, that mediocrity is unacceptable, and that every day is an opportunity to advance into the best version of yourself. It is the ultimate act of discipline, courage, and self-mastery. Finally, this commitment solidifies all the prior keynotes into an integrated system of change. Awareness, rejection of excuses, embracing discomfort, rewiring your mindset, outworking your past self, and cutting toxic influences all feed into this decisive step. Transformation over comfort ensures that the weak version has no refuge, no resurgence, no possibility of survival. Every action, every habit, every thought aligns with evolution, and the weak self is eliminated, leaving only a strong, sharper, more disciplined, unstoppable version of yourself standing in its place. This is the essence of victory, choosing growth over ease, persistence over surrender, excellence over mediocrity, and transformation over comfort every single day, without compromise, without hesitation, and without exception. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything comes together. The point where you either choose to remain who you've been, weak, hesitant, and limited, or you step into the version of yourself that refuses to quit, that refuses to compromise, that refuses to be small. The weak version of you has survived this long because you have allowed it to. It has lived in your excuses, in your fear of discomfort, in your habits, in the toxic influences around you, and in the acceptance of mediocrity. But now you have the blueprint to destroy it. You know what it takes. Awareness, rejecting excuses, embracing discomfort, rewiring your mind, outworking your past self, cutting toxic influences, and committing to transformation over comfort. These are not abstract concepts. They are the tools, the weapons, the principles that will dismantle weakness piece by piece until it cannot survive. And here is the truth that nobody else will tell you. No one is going to do this for you. Nobody is going to push you past your comfort. Nobody is going to force you to work harder than you ever have before. Nobody is going to protect you from the pain that comes with growth. That responsibility belongs entirely to you. The weak version of yourself wants to make you believe that it's someone else's job, that circumstances are to blame, that life is unfair, that tomorrow will be easier. But the strong version, the unstoppable version, knows that excuses, blame, and delay are dead ends. You must choose action. You must choose sacrifice. You must choose struggle. Because every second you hesitate, every second you rationalize, every second you cling to comfort, you are feeding the weak version, and you are stealing from your future self. And your future self is begging you right now to rise, to destroy the old weak version, to embrace discomfort like fuel, to train your mind to think in terms of results, not feelings, to outwork the you of yesterday until every trace of weakness is gone, to cut away everything and everyone that tries to drag you back, to commit so fully to transformation that comfort becomes your enemy, mediocrity becomes intolerable, and every action you take aligns with the person you are destined to become. This is the moment where excuses die, where fear dies, where hesitation dies, and where your strongest, most disciplined, most powerful self is born. It will not be easy. Nothing worth becoming ever is. You will be tested. You will feel pain. You will face failure, and you will feel doubt. That is exactly why you must keep going. That is exactly why you cannot stop. Because every challenge you face, every obstacle you overcome, every moment you push when the world tells you to quit is another strike against the weak version, another brick in the fortress of your future self, and another proof that you are no longer living under limitation. Right now, you have a choice. You can stay the same, or you can rise. You can give in to comfort, or you can commit to transformation. You can continue feeding weakness, or you can starve it completely until it dies. The weak version will scream, it will fight. It will try to trick you into returning to what is easy. Do not listen. Step forward. Embrace the struggle. Take ownership of your life. Push harder. Work longer. Think sharper. Surround yourself with growth, action, and discipline. Every second you act, every choice you make in favor of strength, you are killing the weak version and building the unstoppable version. This is your time. This is your moment. Stop waiting. Stop rationalizing. Stop compromising. Kill that weak version of yourself completely and rise as the warrior, the achiever, the relentless force you were born to become.